if he goes to Buffalo, he will jump into that tier with A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson. And I don't think that's hyperbole.
Hello and welcome to another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks. I'm Jason, he's Vaz, and we've got a special guest back with us today. He is Eric, who is joining us to talk about players that you should pick up right now, and I mean right now. If you're watching this after the NFL draft, it might already be too late because we're talking about Eric's picks for guys to go and get before the NFL draft. So a bit of an urgent video. Let's start off by welcoming Eric to the channel. You joined us before for a mock draft. Eric, welcome back.
Yeah, thanks for having me again. Happy to be here, and hopefully some of these recommendations I make actually work out. There's a few high-risk ones in here that people might get pissed at if they follow my advice on, or maybe I'll look really smart. We'll see. So.
All right. Vaz, and as mentioned, we're going over five players five considerations to think about before the NFL draft. What do you think of the topic?
I mean, first of all, I'm really excited to have Eric on because he's a really smart guy, and I'm pretty excited to hear his picks. I'm very excited to hear what he has to say.
Yeah.
Eric, you've got that on video. There's video evidence of this. You can hold this for the rest of your life or through any other arguments or debates you go through with Vaz in the future.
Exactly.
Let's get started on this. We're talking about five considerations before the NFL draft, starting off with Brandon Aiyuk. A lot of talk about him getting traded. If I have to put money on it, 50-50, pay $1 to win $1. I am going to say that I think Brandon Aiyuk will get traded. I just can't imagine them paying him as well, because they're going to have to pay him more than Debo. And then what's that going to, do to Debo's contract the next time his deal comes up? So it just seems like a mess there. They've got so many other guys that they're paying. I think it does seem apparent that they should trade him. And is this the biggest reason that he is on your list, Eric?
I mean, that has a lot to do with it. So as you mentioned, I think there's a very legitimate chance that he gets traded. However, that's not the only reason that I think Aiyuk is a strong buy. I have always loved Brandon Aiyuk. I've been talking about him since he was in the doghouse in San Francisco. I've acquired him in multiple places. He was on all my redraft teams. And so I do think it's a pretty low risk buy because you're not really going to have to overpay for him right now. That's the first reason. The second reason is he's an elite route runner, destroys man, zone, and press coverage. So no matter where he goes, he's going to be valuable because he gets open and he earns targets. And also the other reason is he's not overpriced. On Keep Trade Cut, a perfect example of what could happen if his situation changes. Look at Drake London. Drake London was about wide receiver 15 and in a tier with Aiyuk, and after the Cousins signing, he immediately jumped from wide receiver 15 to wide receiver 10, despite any change in production or anything, right? And he jumped 1,000 points in Keep Trade Cut value. And instead of getting him for someone around the wide receiver 15, you have to pay for someone that has produced better than him, right? And if Aiyuk goes to Buffalo, as an example, the hype will be impossible to contain. And I think if he goes to Buffalo, he will jump into that tier with A.J. Brown and Garrett Wilson. And I don't think that's hyperbole because he is such a good route runner. There's so many vacated targets, and you're competing with Dalton Kincaid, who's a legitimate threat, but Khalil Shakir, Curtis Samuel, get out of here. And honestly, I think he will have a better top end season, or something similar to that of what Stephon Diggs. And people have been taking advantage of Aiyuk's value for years. I traded, I believe it was Tyler Boyd and Dalvin Cook for Najee Harris and Brandon Aiyuk when he was having a down season. And obviously that's done really well for me.
Wow.
And I think no matter where he goes, unless if he's in a situation where there's already an alpha established. He's going to exceed like a 25% target share volume. And if he doesn't get traded and he signs a long-term deal in San Francisco, you're not really losing any value because he's already proved that he can be a fringe wide receiver one, which is where he's priced at right now. So it's maybe not a buy low situation, but it's buying now before the value could absolutely pop. So like, what would I pay for Brandon Aiyuk as an example? In rookie drafts, I'd give up at least the 108, potentially the 107, or a similar player. Like if you were to trade Drake London and be able to get maybe a second back, capitalizing on the hype of Drake London and hoping you get like a similar situation to Aiyuk for Aiyuk, that's something that I'd be willing to do. So I'm super high on Aiyuk, if you can't tell.
Yeah. Vaz, any thoughts?
Yeah, this one is really interesting to me because I'm not nearly at the same level as you are on Aiyuk. You're going to get some pushback from me here. So
okay.
When I look at Aiyuk, like, yeah, he had a career year last year. He was a fringe wide receiver one. I think he was a high end wide receiver two, right? But his value on Keep Trade Cut right now is exactly that. He's, I think, wide receiver 16 in the same tier as the guys you mentioned, like London and some other guys like Devonta Smith, Chris Olave, Waddle, Nico Collins, Rome Odunze. So like all of these guys are a bit younger than him, and he's 26 years old. So he's at the stage now where he's not going to increase in value. I think like you're buying him for production at this point. So he's not going to increase in value. Once receivers hit 27 years old, they don't increase in value. I mean, yes, if he were to go to Buffalo, then he would increase in value, but that is it. Like,
or San Diego.
But do you think he drops in value
Chargers,
if he stays in San Francisco?
Maybe not, but for me, he's already at a point where his value is a little bit too high for me. I would rather have the receivers I just mentioned who are younger and I still value as like high-end wide receiver twos in the same range as Aiyuk, So
yeah, I can see that. I don't know. I study a lot on route running, and he's in a low passing volume offense. And if he gets somewhere, like he has alpha tendencies, like he gets open at every single level of the field. He's good after the catch. He beats zone coverage. He beats man coverage. He beats press coverage. And I think there is just like a superstar receiver in the right situation. Yeah. So that's my thought process there.
You're not wrong. You're not wrong. His tape is wonderful. He's a great route runner. You're not wrong. I hesitate to say like he's in the same tier as AJ Brown unless he goes to Buffalo. If he goes to Buffalo,
that's what I said. Only like that's the situation. If he goes to Buffalo, he's wide receiver 6 or 7 on Keep Trade Cut within a week, I bet.
Why do you mention Buffalo? Is there some hype around that?
There has been.
Yeah, there's been discuss. Like, I mean, with the pick 28, you look at receivers that have been traded for first round picks. It's in that like 22 to 28 range. You look at like the Justin Jefferson, Stephon Diggs swap that was picked 22, I believe. I might be a little bit off on that, but anyways, it's like that range where you can flip a first and they can reset because they need to save money, right? So getting a first round wide receiver instead of trading like someone that costs a lot of money, you know what I mean? I think those guys.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I was just saying, I think that's the team that I could see doing it.
Right. Do you think that in like such a stacked receiver class, teams are going to be willing to give up a late first round pick to grab a veteran receiver like Aiyuk?
Yeah, I think this is kind of the situation of like taking the mystery box versus the boat. Like, you know what Aiyuk is, right? and if you're at the back of the first round, you're already a Super Bowl contender, right? Yeah. So why take the risk on someone like A.D. Mitchell or Xavier Worthy even, or potentially like Troy Franklin, any of those back end first round guys when you can get an established wide receiver 2 that I think is actually a wide receiver 1. So that's my thought process on that one.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. Honestly, I think there's a very good chance that Aiyuk goes to Buffalo, or at the very worst, which I don't know if it's a good thing, would be maybe the Chargers, which has been spoken a lot as well, because the Chargers have a lot of cap space. And, to get one receiver through the draft is one thing, but then do you really want to get two? And I think that's the thing with Buffalo as well. I can see Buffalo, getting a second receiver through the draft, but like, do you really want to have two rookie receivers through the draft to complement what you've already got? Whereas if you get like an Aiyuk and then you get one more receiver in maybe like the second or third round, then I could see how that works. But to get two rookies, it just seems very risky. And I think they do have the cap space to get a guy like Aiyuk after, cleaning house however they did. And you're getting a younger guy than Diggs was. And I think that's the way they see it. So I wouldn't be surprised if they were already thinking, looking at Aiyuk and the situation like that, or T. Higgins, when they were letting Diggs go, saying like, why should we pay Diggs when we can get a Higgins or an Aiyuk for younger? And these are guys that these teams want to get rid of. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if Buffalo was already thinking that. So I believe that one of those,
and they cleared a ton of money too.
Exactly. So like, I
think that there's just like tea leaves there, right?
Yeah. One of those two, whether it's Higgins or Aiyuk, I believe will go to Buffalo. I wouldn't be surprised if the other went to the Chargers as well. But it is a bit of a game that you're playing with this gamble. But I like the gamble if you're getting that much upside for, something that would just be the same, that keeps the status quo otherwise in terms of the price that you're paying to get them.
Exactly.
Anyways, let's take a look at your next guy. We're going to talk about Kyler Murray. You say buy him now before the draft. Why?
Well, I think this is like the most screaming buy at the QB position. The Cardinals, like if you look at their draft capital, they have 2 first-round selections, 6 selections in the top 90, and 7 picks in the top 104 of the draft next week. So the price for Murray should already be accounting for this, but I don't think it is. He's been valued at QB 11 pretty much all offseason, despite all the rumors of Marvin Harrison Jr. going there, potentially another receiver going there, like additional offensive line help. And then you inject like Marvin Harrison and a random second or third round wide receiver into this draft that can play like on the opposite side of him and stretch the field. Like, I just think that's a smash. Are there issues with Kyler? Of course, right? He had a torn ACL and missed the majority of last season as well. But like, he's a baller. He's got a good deep ball. He offers a safe floor because of the rushing upside, and he has a massive ceiling on top of that. Like, he's already finished QB3 in the past. So I think he's a good buy. So he's a quarterback, right? Like, how do you acquire him? Well, if you weren't smart enough to get him like I did for Kenny Pickett and Najee Harris, then you'll probably need to pay a little bit more. Like, options that I'm comfortable with in this draft, like there's certain people that don't like Kyler, right? So if you're sitting at like 102 or 103 and you need a quarterback, offer the 102 or 103, right? Trade Jaden Daniels for people that are drooling over his upside like Jason that aren't really accounting for the bust risk there. And then like a lateral move that I would be willing to make, I'd trade, if I had Trevor Lawrence, I'd offer him for Kyler Murray 10 out of 10 times. And then like a tier down option would be to receive Kyler and maybe like a first or a similar player for Jalen Hurts or maybe Joe Burrow. I think after the NFL draft, he's going to be one of the biggest risers. And I don't know the next time his acquisition costs will be this low. He's got the contract. If he can just stay healthy, I think he has top 5 overall quarterback upside.
Wow.
So I know you don't agree with this. So let's hear your opinion on this one.
Okay, so first off, I mean, I've said before in other videos that I'm just not a believer with Murray for a couple of reasons. First one being the fact that you had to say if he can stay healthy, and that is an issue with him. Like you said, he's got the ACL. He's a smaller quarterback at 5'10", and the other thing is, I don't know that he's going to run around as much as he has in the past. And I've seen this with running quarterbacks. Like when they're labeled a running quarterback coming out of college, the first couple of seasons, they establish themselves. They run around and they get those rushing yards. And then just like a year before contract negotiations are coming up, they got to play it safe because if they get injured, then they're not going to get that big fat contract. So they don't run as much. And then after they get the contract, they don't seem to run as much as well because, once again, they don't want to get hurt. And I think Kyler Murray fits into that profile where if he were to run as much as we've seen him and that he's capable of, I would see him, raise him up a little bit more. But I just don't see him running as much as he used to. And then the question is he going to run as effectively as he used to coming off of the knee injuries? So there's one thing there. Second thing that I always talk about is attitude. We've talked about him having to be in the contract of how much he's going to study his playbook. So anytime an organization does that, it gives a hint into their character. So I'm just not a believer in terms of his character and in him reaching his full potential of how good he could be. Obviously, he's talented, but he probably could become a better player than he could. And then the third thing, we talk about how Marvin Harrison is going to be there as if it's a done deal, but there still are trade talks of possibly teams moving into number 4 to draft a McCarthy or somebody else. So if Minnesota is unable to move into the 3 spot to make a pick for whoever it be, Drake May or perhaps Daniels, then there's a chance that they do jump into 4 in order to draft McCarthy there. And if that's the case, then you're most likely saying bye-bye to Marvin Harrison for Arizona. They still will end up with somebody good. Obviously, I do agree with that, but will it be to that level or will it be something else? Like, to me, I think if anything, there's more risk involved as to what he's going to be complimented with after the NFL draft. I believe they're going to get somebody, but who knows who it's going to be. I think you can only go down from there. Vaz?
I love this call by Eric. So, I understand your side, Jason, and I think that's why he's at the quarterback 11, because there is some like risk there with mental with his character concerns and the injury and whatnot. But like in terms of upside, the last time he had a good team around him, as Eric said, he was the quarterback 3. He was putting up massive points. He's a league winner. This guy's got top 5 quarterback upside. His upside is through the roof. And you know what? He came back last year with a bad team around him, and he played well. Like he looked legit. Like he looked great last year. So I expect.
And the running didn't disappear. It didn't drop off at all. It was still 8 attempts per game. I looked it up after Jason's comment. So.
Yeah. He's still running the ball. Maybe not as much as he was when he was really young, but he's still got that rushing
6 attempts
floor.
per game. Sorry.
It's okay. He's still got that rushing floor. So, and you know what? He's got a great arm. He's a good passing quarterback. They're going to improve the weapons around him. We saw when he had, Hollywood and Fitzgerald, what he can do there. So I'm not worried at all. I think he's got huge upside, and I do love trading for him at this stage. As Eric said, I would also trade Trevor Lawrence for him. I have Kyler ahead of Lawrence on my rankings, but I would look to tier up if possible. Maybe like if I've got pick 5 or 6. The rookie buzz is so high right now. Maybe Drake May's there at pick 6. I'm not so big on Drake May. Maybe I'll take pick 6 and try to flip it for Kyler straight up. I'm sure I could find an owner willing to do that. So yeah, I love the idea of buying Kyler here. I think he's established. Arizona's paid him a lot of money. They've committed to him publicly and financially. So I think it's a great buy.
Okay. I can't say that I would trade Lawrence for him. I can't say I would even give up Daniels for him. I'm high on Daniels, so would I give up Drake May for him? Sure, but I'm not as high on May as an example. But Eric, any final words based on things that we've said?
No, just buy Kyler while you still can.
I wish I had him so I could sell him to you guys.
Yeah, I've already got him. So,
all right, let's talk about next guy on your list is Justin Herbert.
Yeah, so this is where we get into where your tolerance of risk depends if you want to buy this player or not. So I like Herbert as more of a long-term buy. I think there's definitely some risk associated with buying him. However, I just don't see the Chargers going into the season with Quentin Johnston, Josh Palmer, and I think Hayden Hurst as their top 3 receiving options. Herbert probably doesn't have that premium ceiling that a lot of people thought after his first season in the league, but I think he's a pretty high floor quarterback with some rushing upside, a cannon for an arm, and he's linked to an elite football mind like with John Harbaugh and Greg Roman, right? They're going to run the ball a lot. Everybody knows that. But they also play in a division with Patrick Mahomes. They play in the AFC. You have Joe Burrow there, CJ Stroud. The list goes on, right? So that smash mouth football while it's good in theory, I don't think that's going to be fully what they can commit to. So I think there's some scheme that might be there that people aren't thinking about. So like this guy was ranked adjacent to Mahomes and Allen just 2 years ago, and he had the CJ Stroud-esque height after his rookie season, and now 3 seasons with a bad coach, some injury history, and he's just mediocre, sitting around like quarterback 8. I'm not sure I buy into that. And as Vaz said on a previous show, it's lying season right now. So everybody's saying, oh, they're not going to draft a wide receiver. They're going to take Joe Alt 5 overall. When teams are bad, they typically take best player available. And if you're sitting at 5 and the first 4 picks are quarterbacks, you're taking Marvin Harrison Jr. And if you're at 5 and Malik Neighbors is there, or a Dunze, whoever they prefer, I think those guys are just too talented to pass up for a tackle at pick 5. And then the second that the Chargers draft one of those 3 big wide receivers, Herbert's value is going to get like an immediate jump back up in KTC rankings. And if they don't draft one, I don't think there's going to be a drastic fall, just because they already have no significant options. So I think the drop has already happened, right? So what would I pay for Herbert? Kind of like what we've been doing previously. I would take him over Drake May in a heartbeat. I'd probably still take him over Jaden Daniels. I would also take Herbert and a first, or like an equivalent player for Burrow or Jalen Hurts, similar to what I did in one of my leagues. I traded Herbert and Debo for Jalen Hurts, a 3rd and a 5th. I just think Herbert's going to hold value longer than Jalen Hurts. And I think he's got probably 10 more good years in him. So while there's a lot of risk if they don't address the wide receiver position, I think it's a lot of smoke and mirrors right now. And I do think that they're going to draft a wide receiver at pick 5. So that's my thought process on that. And like I said, this one might not be for everyone. And it's been something I've kind of wrestled with all offseason, because I've always been a huge Justin Herbert guy. I know Vaz like dislikes this guy. So I'm interested to hear what he says on this one. So
let's get straight to that then. Vaz, your thoughts on Herbert?
Yeah, as Eric said, Herbert is not a my guy at all. I'm not a big fan. I think like you just have to look at his win-loss record. You know, as Eric said, he hasn't had the greatest coach, but he's like, I think he's a below 500 player. Like, I haven't seen that killer mentality in his game since his rookie season or his second season. His past 2 seasons have been a huge disappointment. And you know what? He had good receiving options like Keenan Allen, and he had a good Austin Eckler, he's lost these guys now. Of course, they will address receiver, so he'll get a bump up there. But like when I look at his keep trade cut value, he's ranked as the quarterback 8 in the same tier as these following guys: Burrow, Hurts, Lamar. Okay, and he's above Caleb and Jordan Love, and I have both Caleb and Jordan Love ahead of him. So I think like for me, he's my quarterback 11, and he's quarterback 8 on keep trade cut. So if I could take Justin Herbert and turn him into Caleb Williams or Jordan Love, I would do that straight up. I prefer both these guys. I even prefer, to be completely honest, Kyler Murray over Justin Herbert. I think he's got a higher ceiling, and probably doesn't have the same floor in terms of like the length of his career, but I know he doesn't. But I like the ceiling, and I think that going back to Kyler for a second here, I think that the second Kyler plays a full slate of games, he's going to be valued much higher and likely in the same tier as Justin Herbert. So I would like to take Kyler Murray. I would like to take Justin Herbert and see if I could get like a late first thrown on and tear down to Kyler Murray. Yeah, I'm not the biggest Justin Herbert guy.
yeah, that's fair. And like I said, I was a little bit hesitant on doing this as well, but as you know, like my startup draft in my league was terrible. So I've just been kind of recovering and tearing down from Mahomes to Hurts, now Hurts to Herbert. And next, I don't know, it's going to get pretty ugly if I have to tear down again. So it's just more of a value play where I think there's still some potential that he's maybe fallen a bit too far. So I might be wrong though. Like I said, this is where it gets risky. All these next 3 are extremely high risk, and they get more and more risky. So
as mentioned, yeah, those are your safer ones. I actually like the Herbert pick here. Like I said, I actually have him higher than Murray on my list, so I'm perfectly fine with that. But let's get into the next. You've got all the Viking pass catchers together, Eric.
yeah, so this one is also there's some high risk guys in here. There's some like amazing players that I just think dropped and shouldn't have. So Yeah, I think Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, TJ Hawkinson are all buys, but like I said, this is pretty risky. Um, I think in the past, like JJ was pretty much someone you couldn't acquire, right? And I think now, due to the uncertainty at the QB position, he's still wide receiver one, but there's like a conversation there now between CeeDee Lamb and Jamar Chase. So I think right now, depending on the owner, there's a chance you could flip CeeDee Lamb straight up for Justin Jefferson, and I would probably do that like 10 out of 10 times. Jamar Chase, I think I still prefer Justin Jefferson over Jamar Chase. And I would also argue, going back to CD, I think there's significant risk that he has a chance like to get like target competition from the draft. Dallas picks pretty late in the first, right in that wide receiver alley, and their wide receiver two is Brandon Cooks. Like I think there's a very good chance they take someone that could take some target share away from CD. And everyone is worried about JJ and who his next QB will be, right? But he's QB proof. Like he had a blend of Nick Mullins, Jared Hall, and Josh Dobbs, and he put up over 18 points per game. If they draft Drake May or even JJ McCarthy, I think his value just immediately returns to the area where you're not getting him. Like right now, can you use Amon-Ra St. Brown and like a late first to get up to JJ? Because like if you can do that, I think that's like a smash decision. Um, so that's my thought on JJ. TJ Hawkinson, I think he's taken like multiple value bumps or drops because he had the massive leg injury and then the quarterback situation, right? So I think if those didn't happen, he'd be in the conversation for tight end one overall. You still have to give the edge to Sam Laporta, I think, just based on age, but I still think it's very close. And it took me a long time to like catch up to market that Hawkinson was this good. And I think if like as a contender, I think he's like a phenomenal buy, and I think you could probably get him around 108. And I think his value after the draft might even like still stay down a little bit just because of the knee injury that he suffered. But once again, they draft May. He gets a huge bump. Like everybody is confident that Kevin O'Connell can run an offense and bring in a quarterback that can get those people up to speed quickly. So the last one, Jordan Addison, I get it, right? He's not going to be a wide receiver one. Justin Jefferson's there. But if you guys remember after Devontae Smith, like before I say this, I know Devontae Smith is a better wide receiver than Jordan Addison. But after his rookie year, they went and got A.J. Brown, and Devontae Smith fell massively. Like he was taken right around the same spot as like Jerry Jeudy in startups. Like I took Jeudy over him. And in his rookie season, Addison had 900 yards and 10 touchdowns. So let's talk about somebody else that was drafted that had a lot more hype in their rookie season in Jackson Smith-Njigba. So if JSN went for 900 yards and 10 touchdowns, like, Baz, I want you to answer this question after I finish talking. How high would you have JSN if those were his numbers as a rookie? And I also think like everybody brings up JSN's struggles because of target competition, right? I think that you could argue TJ Hawkinson and Justin Jefferson is a tougher group to command targets from than DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. And the next argument on Jordan Addison, well, most of his production happened when Justin Jefferson was out. Okay, that's true. But what does that mean? That means that he proved he can beat defenses when they have their top corner on him and when he's the main guy, like one of the main guys in the scheme, right? So I think when JJ is full strength, the target share is going to drop, but so will the level of competition that Addison has to beat. So I think he's kind of a sneaky buy that could get some steam if the Vikings are to get a quarterback, but he's still probably serviceable with Darnold. So like personally, I think JSN and Addison is like a really interesting conversation. Like JSN obviously had the college pedigree and all the hype, but Addison produced in the NFL, right? We didn't see a lot out of JSN, and there's excuses for that. But I don't know who I would take there. And then like, what would I give up for him in the rookie draft? 110, 109 plus, which is what I already did. I would easily do that because you're getting what I think is guaranteed wide receiver 2 production instead of taking a risk on a guy like A.D. Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, or something. And once again, if the Vikings draft May, it's immediately going to shoot up value. And like in conclusion, like JJ becomes impossible to get. Hawkinson jumps back up into the top tier of tight ends. So I think these guys are just somebody that you guys should take a shot on and like see what the price is, because when I inquired about Addison, I did not think I would get him at the cost I did. So
Yep.
I think the most lingering thing that you said was that Justin Jefferson used to be untouchable. This is a guy that, people would not trade you. But right now, based on his situation and, wasn't the wide receiver 1 this season. So all of a sudden, maybe he is available, whereas you couldn't get him in the past at all. And perhaps you won't be able to get him again in the future. But maybe this is a window of opportunity that you may be able to acquire him. Vaz, what were the things that stood out to you most?
Yeah, no pushback from me at all. I had no pushback from me whatsoever. I'll answer Eric's question. If JSN put up Jordan Addison's numbers, JSN would be very highly ranked for me. Probably even like maybe even in the same tier as like Amon-Ra. Okay, so
exactly, right?
Yeah, but like, listen. The situations are different, Eric. So I don't want to get into that fully. Like, he wasn't seeing the field, so we're not going to get into that a lot. But I agree fully. These are all 3 great buys. I love buying TJ Hawkinson at his current value. That's my favorite one. I think JJ is still really, really difficult to get. But if you can like get him for Amon-Ra on a late first, I love it. Absolutely love it. And Jordan Addison, as you said, very talented player. He showed he can be a wide receiver 1. He's got the talent to do it. So I love that pick as well. All 3 I'm on board with.
Yeah, and I still think that Darnold could be a sneaky quarterback pick as well, because after spending a year in San Francisco with Shanahan, learning the ropes, still having a 3rd overall pick pedigree, maybe he's been able to put things back together. We don't know, but it can't be any worse than he's been in the past. So if he, now actually being in a good situation with weapons, maybe he's able to put it all together and still be a decent quarterback for the receivers that he has been gifted with.
Now, I can't do it for you. The inches we need are everywhere around us. What are you gonna do? Like! Subscribe!
And we have one more buy before the draft. Eric, you say go and grab all the receivers or any of the receivers from the Kansas City Chiefs. Why?
Well, I want to clarify, it's not any of the receivers. It's Rashee Rice and Hollywood Brown.
Okay.
I do not advocate buying Kadarius Toney or Sky Moore for anything.
Kelsey?
Well,
Travis Kelsey?
I mean, you can his value will stay the same. I think they're not going to draft a tight end, but I don't think it changes at all. So I don't really view him as a buy. But I think it's a very high risk buy, obviously, with the uncertainty of Rashee Rice's legal situation and them picking at 32, which is right in that receiver alley, right? However, if they don't draft a wide receiver, I think it kind of speaks volumes about how the Chiefs feel about Rashee Rice's situation. He's already practicing with the team. He's doing private workouts with Patrick Mahomes. Kansas City basically came out and said, we'll let the authorities handle this. And didn't really comment on it. So I don't think they're going to cut him or anything. I don't think he's going to prison. I think he gets 1 or 2 games. And this guy, he would have had over 1,000 yards had he been a full-time player for the whole season. He also skipped the last game. So prior to his incompetence and immaturity on keep trade cut, he was all the way up to wide receiver 14. And now he's all the way down at wide receiver 31, which I get it, right? There is a lot of risk here. But you can get him for probably a mid-2024 second, maybe an early 2024 second, which is what I paid. And in that situation, in the rookie draft, you're looking at, in most cases, a guy at best case scenario, like a Ladd McConkey, or if you're in the middle, you're looking at high-risk running backs that are basically like a dart throw, like a Blake Corum or a Jalen Wright. And in that situation, give me Rashee Rice all day. Because, like I said, I don't think he's going to prison. In addition, I think Hollywood has pretty nice upside for contending teams, predicated on his ability to just take the top off the defense. He's a great deep threat, and he's got Patrick Mahomes throwing him the ball. So even MVS was able to get open. If he could just catch the damn ball, he would have had a decent season. I'm not saying they're anywhere in the same category, but it's like a similar type of deep threat wide receiver. And he's also valued around a early to mid 24 second round pick right now. And I get it. He only has a 1 year contract in KC, and they're not known for paying wide receivers. But if he absolutely smashes, maybe they change their tune and decide to lock him up for a longer term deal. Because this is more of like a prove it deal, right? And if they don't draft a wide receiver, once again, Hollywood is pretty well locked into a wide receiver 2 role, not just in this offense, but like in fantasy. And he represents his target composition after Kelsey. If Rashee Rice misses a couple games, you're competing with Kadarius Toney and Sky Moore. Like, nobody gives a shit about those guys. So my theory is just, why not take a shot on 2 guys that are tied to Patrick Mahomes, who have pretty palatable value on Keep Trade Cut right now. So if they draft a wide receiver in round 1, yeah, well, whoops. But if they don't, they're going to skyrocket in value. So
I couldn't agree more. I love this take, and I'd be shocked if they drafted a receiver in round 1, maybe later on. But here's one more thing that I like about this. And obviously, let me first say, the whole Rashee Rice situation, we don't know what's going to happen. A worst case scenario is that, he gets released, right? But at the same time, if you're not giving up much for that, like a mid-second, as mentioned, I'd be all in on that for a mid, maybe a late second. When it comes to Hollywood Brown, same thing. Yes, it's only a 1 year contract, but if he performs, if he has like a 1,000 or a 1,200 yard season, I can't see how they don't bring him back. I think it will earn him a new contract. And here's the one thing that you didn't mention is, what if the aging Travis Kelce, who has now won 3 Super Bowls and has a girlfriend that makes a ton of money, what if he decides to play one more season and retires at the end of the upcoming season? Then, if you've got position in the offense and you're the most experienced receiver for Patrick Mahomes at that point, then that looks pretty good going into the following season. So coming from a dynasty standpoint, I love both of these guys if they can establish themselves in that situation. Vaz?
Yeah, I also love picking up both these guys, but it's value dependent. Like, if the cost is what Eric said, and like a mid-second round pick or an early second round pick for Rashee Rice, of course, I love that price. I think Rashee Rice's value has stabilized on Keep Trade Cut now at around like 4,000 points or something like that.
Yeah,
like wide receiver 30, and I think that's an excellent buy opportunity for you. He's proven that he's like a wide receiver 1 in that offense, and like Eric said, he's not going to jail. He'll get 1 or 2 games. Unlike you guys, I think it's highly likely they do draft a receiver in round 1 or round 2. The reason being that Hollywood it's not because of Rashee Rice. I mean, like, slightly because of Rashee Rice, but I think more so because Hollywood Brown is on a 1 year contract, so they do need to add to that depth chart. So I do expect them to draft a receiver. But like, that being said, I know that Rashee Rice is talented. I really like buying him at his current value. I think even if they did draft somebody in round 1 or round 2, Rashee Rice is still like the main target on shallow routes, right? And you know what? Defenses play the Chiefs two safeties deep all the time. They don't let Mahomes have the deep passes. So like, Rashee Rice is the main target there, and he will be next season. Hollywood Brown, for me, not
outside of Kelsey.
Even not outside of Kelsey. Kelsey's getting older. He looked great in the playoffs, but it's becoming Rashee Rice as the main guy, I think, at this point. But in terms of Hollywood Brown, I'm not paying a high second for Hollywood Brown. I think mid-second I would pay as a competing roster, because like you said, this season especially, he's going to be an easy start in your lineup. But you know what? Like I said previously, Kansas teams take away the deep ball from Kansas City, and that's what Hollywood does well. I don't expect he'll have several opportunities every game to catch a deep pass. He'll have one or two, and he doesn't have amazing hands. He's a good player, but he's not like foolproof of dropping some passes too. Like I've seen it happen with Lamar in the past. So like I mean, Hollywood's a good player. He's definitely a step up from like Valdez Scantling. You're not getting any pushback from me there, but it all depends on value. If you're giving up a second round pick to grab him, I'm on board. Anything more, I'm a little bit hesitant.
I would go as high. I'd go as high as maybe 110 or the first pick of the second round. Or sorry, 112 or the first pick of the second round. I would take him over like McConkey. I put right around where Adonai Mitchell is going. I would say, like, I think to me that would be the comparison of which one of those two do I take that I would struggle.
Yeah,
with.
That's way too high for me.
Yeah, anything after Mitchell, I would.
I think I kind of agree. If I needed like one additional piece to get to like a championship caliber roster, I think I'd pay an early second. But I don't think if he had a 3-year deal, like then I would do that. But on a 1-year deal, it's a little bit too expensive for me, I think. But maybe in 3 days, I feel differently, right? So that's the part of this.
Yep. And
these
as
are
mentioned,
high risk buys, sort of. So
absolutely, and these are the risks that you're taking prior to the NFL draft, which of course is coming up, and that now wraps up 5 buys or 5 considerations to think about prior to the NFL draft. Of course, so much can change after the NFL draft. All sorts of rankings and situations are going to change, but these might be your last opportunity to get some of these guys at the price that they are at right now. Eric, I want to thank you for joining us once again. We certainly hope that you'll join us again in the future for more of these videos.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Eric.
Vaz, any final words?
No, other than just please comment about the buys that you've heard today. Are you buying these players? Are you trading away these players? We'd love to hear about it in the comments.
Absolutely. And like the video as well, and subscribe to our channel if you haven't done so yet, so that you're up to date with all of our future videos as well. Thanks for joining us for another edition of Fantasy Football Freaks.